The Florida Gators handled the Mississippi State Bulldogs on Saturday, and I think that was enough to say Billy Napier just needs more time.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, wherever the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Monday. Happy Victory Monday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter, WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI.com. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Obviously, I was kidding about the Billy Napier just needing more time thing. They won. It's the bye week. Let's have a little bit of fun with things, right? So, yeah, the win changes nothing. That was always the thing. It was always beating Mississippi State means nothing. If anything, it would just buy you a little bit of time with the administration before they actually make the decision. But that goose is cooked, man. I will say this. I do think that, and I said this on Saturday in the postcast, I do think that the offense looked more open than previously. It wouldn't shock me if Russ Callaway played more of a role in the offense, co-offensive coordinator, finally making an impact in the offense. Wouldn't shock me. I said it on Saturday's postcast that I don't necessarily think he called plays, but maybe played a bigger role in the game plan. I think that's what I'm thinking. We saw more designed screens to running backs. And also, I do mean screens to running backs, not just swings, but screens to running backs. We saw a more creative and explosive passing game, which could be that because they didn't have Trey Wilson, they didn't want to do all the jet motions that they usually do. And they still did them. It was with Chim DK usually. But maybe it was without Trey that they were like, okay, well, let's open this up a little bit because we have to. We'll talk more about the passing game later. But it wouldn't shock me if Russ Callaway played more of a role in the offense, because the thing that looked considerably different was the passing game. And so for me, I look at it and I say, all right, maybe a little bit of a difference. Not a ton. I mean, it was still getting to the deep crossers that we know Billy Napier loves. It was still getting to a lot of the things that Billy Napier loves. They just did a better job of getting to those things. And that's always been the complaint, hasn't it? At least for me, my complaint has always been it's not the scheme. Genuinely, offensively, it's not the scheme. I think it's simply the play calling. I think that's the big issue. I think that, the bare bones of this scheme, the bare bones of this offense are fine. I think it's two things. One, you need the right personnel to run it. And two, the play calling's been bad. As far as the right personnel to run it, it needs a pretty good offensive line. You don't have that. Pass blocking has been a lot better this year from the offensive line. They finally give quarterbacks some times usually. Run blocking has been horrible, just so bad. But also, and I was talking about this with, I think, the Insiders yesterday, which links in the description below if you want to become a Locked On Gators Insider. I feel like it's not even so much that the run blocking is so bad. It's the predictable play calling. Like, they come out in pistol, you can usually guess that they're going to run the football. Okay. So they come out in pistol, you guess they're going to run. And it kind of looks like they're running to the B gap a lot regardless. And so I feel like you can kind of go, okay, they're in pistol. We know where we're heading. And that's more indicative of it, more than just the offensive line being bad at it. I don't think they've been good. Don't get me wrong. But I do think a lot of it's the scheme. Like, you could, the long run for Jaden Ball, the 32-yard run. offensive line didn't do anything incredible on that play. Like it parted like the Red Sea, but there just wasn't a Mississippi State defender there. And it looked to me more like the successful runs were just runs where they had numbers, runs where they had the lane already predetermined and already set up for them. And the offensive line didn't really do anything special, but I also don't think they did anything to hurt you. That makes sense. Defense, woof. It's just, I mean, they just ran down your throat consistently. And I felt bad for DeAndre Robinson because when DeAndre Robinson was on the field, I feel like they just knew on the interior they win that battle, and they just kept running it right up the middle. They're like, hey, he's on the field, pummel it right up. And it worked. Like, I don't think Florida's defensive staff did a good job of making adjustments in this game to really stifle anything. Like, I would have been like, okay, if we've got DeAndre on the field and they're going to run at DeAndre, we're going to blitz a linebacker right behind him and give him some help there. Personally, I would have been like, all right, well, it's not ideal to have DeAndre out there, but that's where we're at right now because injuries on the interior have piled up. Like Jamari Lyons, Mekhi Boyero being out at the nose, that hurts. I would have liked to see, not that he's been playing well either, but like Caleb Banks at the nose sometimes instead of DeAndre, then bring Kelby Collins as the 3-tech and run that combination out there. But it was just bad. It was just bad. And they didn't make the adjustments. And I think not making adjustments is the exact reason that you can say it's not about Billy Napier needing more time. Right? Like the lack of necessary changes is just inexcusable. Your scheme needs a good offensive line. Rob Sell's been your offensive line coach for 3 years, and offensive line last year and this year, horrendous, right? Again, improved this year from last year, but for the most part, not good, right? Also, they've had struggles when they've played good Power 4 teams. Not surprising there. So Rob Sell is your offensive line coach. He has been, and he's been bad. Offensive line recruiting is bad. I like the players they brought in, genuinely. I don't have many issues with the offensive line recruits that they brought in. I don't think you've brought in enough of them. And I don't think you brought in enough guys that are, okay, they're already really good recruits. Let's make them better. I think you brought in a lot of guys where it's like, well, they have the physical traits. Let's make them good. And that's just not a thing that I think is going to be working here. And he's still here. Like, Jabbar Jaluk, I get why he's here. I understand, oh, Florida hasn't brought in the top running back. Their freshman running backs always contribute. I don't care about the rankings. Jabbar Jaluk gets guys going. So I don't care about that. Defensive adjustments. I mean, also, let's just get this one out there. Ron Roberts has no business being a leader of men in any way, shape, or form, and he's still there. Napier can't make the tough call on things, and I think that's clear. Also, I will say, I do think it's ironic to go, maybe Napier needs more time. He's changed defensive play callers every single year. One time because they went to the NFL. One time because he kind of just felt like it when he brought in Ron Roberts. I'm good. I'm good on that. I don't think that's strong there at all. I'm good. Florida Gators offense looked better. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I'll tell you, FanDuel has done a great job in the, I want to say 2.5, 3 years since sports gambling was legalized in New York. Like I said, I live in New York. They've done a great job of updating the UI, and it's gotten so much better. It used to just be, hey, these are the stats. This is the bet you placed. This is how much you make. That's it. Now they tell you play by play. They'll update the stat of your bet and they'll cash it out if you pass that number. It's sick. I'm just saying. You'll get started with 200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free with us in the podcast and on YouTube. And like I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, the passing game against Mississippi State looked really good. It did. Like, first off, we saw, like I mentioned, more running back screens straight up. Not so much the swing, but the screen. To Jacoby Jackson, I think was the running back that had a decent game there. We saw just the offense open up, but the passing game specifically really helped for Florida. Graham Mertz was dealing. DJ Lagway didn't throw an incompletion. Like, they were just out there. Like, it's as simple as that. And I will say it was Mississippi State, and that's important. Like I mentioned before and before the game, Mississippi State has a tendency to just rush 3 players. That's it. Maybe a 4th off the edge. They were more aggressive this week than usual, but even then, they were relatively ineffective. The pass blocking really just dominated. I think that they did a really great job of protecting both quarterbacks. I don't think DJ Lagway had a single throw where he was under pressure or a single drop back where he went under pressure. And Graham Mertz, I don't know if he had any. I don't think he got sacked at all. I don't think Florida gave up a sack at all in this game, which, I mean, hell, that honestly, that's just impressive. But they did a good job of allowing Graham Mertz to attack all over the field. Of course, yeah, he went behind the line of scrimmage a good bit. He went short yardage, but he had the deep crosser to Chimdike. He had a deep ball that he threw to, I think it was Tony Livingston down the middle. And Tony Livingston drew the pass interference call. They had another deep shot on the left side. I forgot who it was to. Oh, Marcus Burke. The pump fake and the double move, like the stop and go, and then go to Marcus Burke down the sideline there. The Hayden Hansen touchdown up the seam. Great ball. Like, there were 2 defenders in front on each side and 1 defender past Hayden, and he got it to Hayden. Timing wise was when it needed to get there. Lofted it through, layered throw. Hayden kind of broke a tackle. It was really weird. The guy just like threw his shoulder into Hayden, and that did nothing. And Hayden scored there. It was a nice passing attack. Like they spread it out. It was balanced. Tempo was good with it. They attacked with Aiden Mizell, who, by the way, that kid needs to play more. I don't care about his knee was on the ground and then he ran after that. It was the awareness that, hey, I didn't hear a whistle. I'm running. Like, that kind of stuff I love. The BS blindside block that Montreal picked up on an Aiden Mizell catch and run, where, I mean, again, one of those things where I know the flag called it back. I know the flag brought it back and the stats won't matter. But that film is like, Aiden is running out there. He's running. He's finding new angles to attack. He's going out. That was a hell of a play. He needs to play more. He looks a lot improved this year. And he's someone that I really liked. But I was like, hey, I think he might be a little limited. I don't think he is anymore. I don't think he's limited like that. I used to say, he's a little stiff in the hips. I don't know if he's going to break out of that. He was wiggling. He was wiggling out there. Love the tight end rotation. We saw a pretty good rotation of it. I feel like we saw Arliss on a lot of the passing downs, and I feel like they kind of just went, hey, Arliss is going to be out there on passing downs a lot. Looking at the stats, yeah, Arliss was out there for 15 snaps. 7 of them he ran routes on. 8 he was blocking. Tony Livingston was out there for 30 snaps. 17 of them he was blocking. 12 of them he ran routes on. Once he was pass blocking. And Hayden was out there for 57 snaps, 30 run blocking, ran 17 routes, and was pass blocking on 10 of his reps, which also great job to finally put Hayden Hansen in pass protection. Again, it's something that, we've kind of been clamoring for and asking for. And the offensive line, by the way, did not give up a pressure. The offensive line did not give up a pressure in any rep in which they were engaged. It was honestly just a hell of hell of a offensive performance in terms of pass blocking. O-line did a great job there. Run game was pretty. I don't want to say bad because I don't think it was bad. Genuinely, I don't think the run game is bad. I think you had enough explosive runs that you needed. I think you had enough impressive runs that you needed. But I want to say that I'm not totally enamored with the run game just because it was Mississippi State. Graham got going in the run game. Lagway got going in the run game. But I will say, also, I think people are being too hard on Montrell. I don't think Montrell is playing as bad as people are trying to make it seem. And I said this on Saturday's postcast. I don't think he's playing as bad as people are trying to make it seem. I think he's playing the worst of the backs that are playing. I agree with that. I think Ball, Webb, and Jacoby Jackson have been running better than him. But I don't think he's been running poorly. I think they've been running really well, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't change anything. Like, you should play the best backs. I just want to make it clear. I don't think Montrell is doing poorly. He's just not doing as much. Florida had 224 total rushing yards. 146 of them came after contact. And when you remove DJ and Graham Mertz, I'll do the math. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm not about to pull up a calculator. I'll pull up the calculator and do the math there. They had 178 running back rushing yards. So 178 running back rushing yards, 116 of them after contact. 65.2% of their rushing yards from running backs came after contact. Personally, I think that's too high just because I feel like you're getting hit a lot at the line or behind. And that was just ugly. But you created runs. Every single person that ran the ball had a 10-yard rush. Hard to complain when you find that kind of consistency. They had 12 broken tackles. I will say this. Dating from the end of last season going up to this season, Treon Webb is someone that I was skeptical of. I wasn't really impressed with what he did last year. I thought that he kind of waited for things to come to him too much. Like patience behind the line is great. I think that he waited too much for things to come to him. He's no longer doing that. He is finding a lane and hitting the lane. And that's a huge improvement from him. Like, honest, and he is running violent this year. Like, everything. He's falling forward he's balling right now this year. I know he's not getting the touches that we probably want to see. I don't know why he's not seeing more targets in the passing game. He doesn't have any yet this year. It's really weird. Because again, and I talked about this on the postcast, that's something where when he was coming out of high school, I remember talking with John Garcia back then, before Brian Smith was with us. And I remember talking to John Garcia, and he was like, yeah, like, this guy's, he's a great runner receiver. Like, he does a great job of that. We're just not seeing him get those opportunities, and it's really weird to me. I don't get it. And I also think they're getting way too obvious with, if this guy's on the field, he's running. Jaden Baugh has played 13 running snaps, and he's gotten the ball on 10 of them. It's weird. I don't like how some things are going. I think some splits are a bit odd, but it is what it is. But Treon Webb balling this year, and 4.5 yards per carry. I don't care. He's picking up 3.15 of those are after contact. He's getting hit on average, basically a yard past the line of scrimmage. Like, he's not getting free rushing lanes. He's just creating, and that's impressive. And again, pass blocking, he's been violent. In fact, you'll probably, by the time this comes out, you might see a clip, because I think I'm going to make a cut up of all of the pass blocking reps from running backs, just to point out what they're looking like. And again, I think Treon's been just a killer there. He's like, he hasn't done it a ton, but he put some dudes in the ground against Texas A&M. His chips were just great there. I think that Treon should get more carries, if not the bulk at this point. Defense is literally inexplicable, but I can try my best next on Locked On Gators. I don't know if you plan on going to any Florida Gators games this year, I went to the Miami one. Broke my heart. But Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Stop wasting time, okay? Use Game Time. It is the best ticket marketplace. It is the only ticket marketplace that I use now. Genuinely, the only one. I've told you, I've gone to Florida games with it. I've gone to Mets games with it. I've gone to, this year alone, an Anita concert, a Shabuzi concert, a That Mexican OT concert. I'm going to go to a Sueco concert next month, only on Game Time. And like I said the other day, they sent me a notification. They're like, hey, Aventura is going to be here in December. Maybe do that. I might do it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And like I said, I can't explain the Florida Gators defense, but I can try my best to do so, right? There's a lot of guys on the defense, by the way, that are struggling. I can't explain some of it. Some of it is just poor coaching, honestly. I will also say this. For Ron Roberts being as experienced as he is, 30 plus years, I still can't believe that he told ESPN, I think these guys just don't believe in themselves. That is a wild thing for a coach. Like, even if you think it's true, it's just such a stupid thing to say. I don't get it. For a guy with 30 plus years of coaching experience, it's wild to me that he would say something so dumb. Because again, that's, even if it's true, I don't get it. He's been coaching since 1990. So 34 years of coaching experience. And it doesn't look like he's taken a year off at all. Wild to me. Just absolutely nuts. And also, by the way, that's including head coach years. He was head coach for, I think, like 5 years at Delta State, where he had Patrick Toney, he had Dan Lanning, or Pete Golding. It's wild how that's gone. But I will say this. My best theory for why Ron Roberts, who, by the way, should not have a job as a leader of men in any way, shape, or form, my best theory for why he's flopped are really two theories, we'll say. One, he knows he's getting fired with the whole staff. They know they're getting fired, and they're phoning it in. Okay? I think week one might have genuinely been trying their best. Week one might have genuinely been him trying to be locked in, and it just didn't work. Which also, the offense was horrible in week one. Defense was constantly out there. And I think that week one, you can kind of say, hey, you just ran into a really good Miami team. They outplayed you. You tried genuinely. But I think after that game, he was like, oh, we're definitely getting canned after this year, if we even make it to this year. Because when you look at even just last year, like Ron Roberts has had some incredible years of coaching college football. Like, look at 2021 Baylor and look at what they did defensively. And sure, there were some NFL guys out there, but not enough to be as dominant as they were defensively in 2021. Okay, so 2021 Baylor, hell of a year. Okay, which is, by the way, one of the reasons that I was like, oh, Billy, like, take him, like, get him right now from Baylor when Billy got hired. That obviously didn't happen. Dude, look at Auburn last year. He made some magic with Auburn's defense last season. A defense that was talent deficient at a lot of levels. I think that last year's Auburn defense was not talented, but they outperformed expectations by just about every measure, right? And then he can't make this defense, which I don't think is talent deficient for the most part, can't make this defense look even competent. That's tough. That's genuinely a tough sell for me because I don't follow at all. I don't get it. I mean, Auburn last year, I don't think that their defense was incredible by any stretch of the word, but they outperformed expectations. And one big thing for them was that, like our pass rush isn't that good. Our pass rush isn't great. We don't know how to get that. They had 220 pressures last year. That pass rush wasn't that good. Pass rush was young. Secondary wasn't proven yet. They had 33 more pressures than Florida had last year. That's insane to me. The 220 pressures is what? Almost 20 a game, right? Or we'll say conservatively like 15 a game. Florida's at 60 through 4, which is exactly 15 a game. But also a lot of Florida's damage came against Stanford. And that's just brutal stuff. So I will say that I think he's phoned it in. I will also say when he made his system, because that's an important part to remember here. For all the trash off field, for all of how bad he is right now, I do think it's important to acknowledge that what he did in the past was great for football in general. Like a lot of what modern defenses are now are because of what Ron Robert did in the past. Now, he does not deserve to be a coach anywhere. And I think football has adapted and he hasn't. And it's football. It's what have you done for me lately? It's football. It's adapt or die. He has not adapted. He gets to phone it in right now, right? Because everybody should, right? Why not? It's over. Guys can stop recruiting, which just has happened. I will say that. Guys can stop recruiting. Guys can stop trying their hardest. It's tough. And I will also say this. I know that we're a little under 2 weeks away from the game. I think UCF's going to beat the Florida Gators when they play in the Swamp. I do. And I will also say this. I know that Florida won a game on the road, and that's an insane thing to do for Billy Napier. And I know Billy kind of mentioned, hey, I'm liking this right now, getting on the road here. He's been getting booed at his home stadium. There's not as much pressure on the road there. But when you come back home, you're going to be facing UCF. And there's going to be a lot of pressure to win that game. And he's crumbled every time. So, because even going back to 2022 Utah, there was no pressure on that game. Nobody expected you to win that football game. So there's no pressure there. He won. 2023 Utah, there was pressure. Crumbled. 2024 Miami, there was pressure, crumbled. Tough stuff. But yeah, I don't know how Florida stops UCF's run game at all. And if I'm Gus Malzahn, I'm smelling blood in the water. I'm looking at that and I'm like, I'm gonna cook him. And Florida's run defense in the run alone against Mississippi State. I'm not talking about total missed tackles. I'm talking about in the run alone. Florida had 13 missed tackles against the run. DJ Douglas had 3, which is not surprising. Bryce Thornton had 2. Shamar James had 2. Pop Howard, Jordan Castell, Tyreek Sapp, Jack Piber, and Caleb Banks, and Triquez Bridges all had 1. 13 missed tackles there. And that's Mississippi State, a team that's not, insanely elusive and evasive. Total missed tackles against Mississippi State was 23. So 10 against the pass alone. I don't know how you can look at this team and say, yep, they're going to beat UCF. They're going to be able to stop that run game. Because Mississippi State's one of the worst run games in the country. They put up 250 on 5 yards per carry against Florida. They had Kevon Lee and Johnny Daniels. And even Devon Booth, we'll put, had pretty high elusive ratings. And I don't know how Florida's intending on stopping that. Genuinely. They had higher ratings. They had higher elusive ratings on PFF than everybody other than Jaden Baugh in Florida's backfield. Kevon Lee, his elusive rating against Florida the highest this season. It's taking into account, missed tackles per carry. Johnny Daniels, highest elusive rating. Yep, against Florida, highest this season. Devon Booth, highest elusive rating against Florida. So I'm just trying to read the tea leaves here, and I'm like, well, Florida's missing a lot of tackles, which obviously implies that guys are getting higher elusive ratings because that's how you increase it. And also, I'm talking about rating, not grade, because I know I don't put much stock into PFF grades. Their stats, yeah, I'll do. Their analytics, yep, I'll do. But not too much grades. But looking at the leading rushers for UCF, who, by the way, RJ Harvey, and then Penny Boone, who went to Toledo, RJ Harvey's got a 109.2 elusive rating, which is higher than anybody had on Mississippi State for the season. And they all had their best games against Florida. Needless to say, it's going to be tough. And UCF uses their receivers in the rushing game. They get creative with things. And Florida has really struggled when teams get creative. I don't know how you fix this defense. Personally, I fire Ron Roberts right now, and I give Austin Armstrong the keys to the defense. And I say, hey, man, do whatever you think is the best for this team defensively. Make it happen because it needs to be fixed. Because also, I don't like the way they even schematically defended Mississippi State. I'm not even talking about the missed tackles, any of that. I don't like the way that they schematically approached the Mississippi State game. Because you should have approached it more like you approached the Tennessee game last year. And you didn't. And that pisses me off because you put Tennessee in a box last year. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with NewYorkGiantsNSI.com, and I'll see you all next time.